Good morning, everyone. Thanks for bearing with me while you wait for your coffee. I sympathize. It is so cool to be here because it feels like not that long ago, I would have been scheming just to try to get in the same room with many of the amazing explorers we've been hearing from. Not to mention getting to have the stage to share with you all some of my own experiences about using expeditions and fieldwork to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, AKA how to do some good with the fun things that you want to do. But before we get into any of that, I just want to start here and say, it can just be fun, okay? If it's your first expedition, if it's your first time to a place, I cannot encourage you enough to just go, ideally with as little fanfare and little hullabaloo as possible. Go and learn, go ask questions, because what you see will inevitably shape your understanding of the world, and that will become what you can bring back and use to contribute in the future. Okay, but who am I to be talking to you about any of this? So that's me, that's what I look like more of the time. And I am in the really wonderful position of getting to lead the development of the Transcaucasian Trail, which, if you're not familiar with the South Caucasus, that's the little region here, sandwiched nicely between Russia, Iran, and Turkey. That little strip of lands that contains some of the most densely concentrated linguistic and biological diversity anywhere in the world. It's beautiful, as you'll see in some of the pictures. And my colleagues and I have been working for the past 8 years to develop a 3,000-kilometer hiking trail network across the region, linking together historical paths, old Soviet jeep tracks, and brand new trails that we've actually been building ourselves, all with the goals of supporting sustainable tourism around the region, promoting conservation, and you'll notice there's no borders on this map. We're actually trying very hard to bring people together and work towards a common goal among 3 countries that don't talk to each other very often. Now, fun facts, this project actually has a very long RGS history. One of the things that helped get it started was back in 2016, our own Tom Allen, who is now here at the RGS, got a grant and a Land Rover to drive around Armenia, mapping historical trails, connecting with local folks, and building a team that has since gone on and done incredible work. And what we're seeing is really thanks to the initial belief from the RGS in that project and the incredible people we've met along the way. So what does building a 3,000-kilometer trail look like? Sometimes it's a lot of this, following the shepherd's path over the mountain. Sometimes it's a lot of this, stomping through the woods, looking for a historical trail. Sometimes it's a lot of this, actually moving dirt. And sometimes it's a lot of this, because that's what happens when you bring a bunch of young people together from the Caucasus to build trails together and have a good time. You just cannot stop the dance outbreaks. It's pretty fun. And over, it's 8 years later now since that initial project. To date, we've opened 1,700 kilometers of trail that people are actively hiking. And we've seen this had a huge impact on many of the communities that the trails pass through, and a huge impact on getting young people engaged in getting outside, doing conservation volunteering, connecting with their homeland in a different way, and really coming together to make the whole thing possible. You can see a lot of that team here, and what I think is really special about this, it looks like a very generic group photo, but actually about 2/3 of the people in this photo are from countries that have been actively at war with each other several times in the past years, where the borders are closed and where there's basically no dialogue between citizens, all coming together because they love hiking, they love the outdoors, and they've been able to connect around this shared passion. And this is just some of the field work that we've done over the past year. So not only doing expeditions to map and scout the Caucasus, but the field work of getting people together, bringing them out, dig in the dirt, have a good time, make some new connections, and it's really fun. But before I was involved in the TCT, that was my previous life. This is the best photo I could find from my years of working in development economics. I don't know if you can see the desperation in my eyes to get outside more. But I did have the chance to learn from some amazing folks at MIT and to work with colleagues around the world. And this gave me a strong sense of really rigorously thinking about your impact, which is something that I think we can all learn from as we're working to make our expeditions and fieldwork more impactful. That's also how I got obsessed with travel and thinking about, not just if Meagan is going and doing her cool expedition and having fun, but what happens when there's 50 Meagans, 100 Meagans? How do you think about that impact over time? And all of this becomes really important when you're thinking about planning your expedition, because there will be people who come after you if you do a good job and if you communicate it well. So this brings me to a framework to think about how do we want to do some good in the world. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. If you're not familiar with them, I would really recommend taking some time to go through them. One thing that I love about the SDGs is both they are wildly ambitious in terms of the goals that have been set out for humanity, but they also include really practical day-to-day actions that you can incorporate into your everyday life and into the way you think about your travel. And number two, there are 17 of these, okay, 17 wildly ambitious things. No one person can do all of them, which means you have to pick. You have to pick where you're putting your focus, where you're having your impact, dive deep, pick a passion, commit, and that in turn inspires other people to do the same. Now, these are some ones that I think are particularly relevant to the expedition space, but in reality, you could design an incredible expedition around any of these, as long as you dive deep, engage with people on the ground, learn what you can, and use your own platform, journey, fieldwork to amplify these messages. So a couple of these I want to pull out as specific principles that I think are good to consider when you're planning your journey. Number one, thinking about your responsible consumption and production. So that can tie into your gear. Do you actually need the new stuff? And if so, how is it being made? Number two, your transport. Do you need to fly, or can you get there somehow that's going to take longer but maybe be more interesting? Thinking about the people you're staying with. Is that the Marriott or is it the local guest house? Now, this is all really simple stuff. I'm probably totally preaching to the choir here, but what's important is that we also model these behaviors for other people because over time, they really add up. Thinking about your environmental impact, we heard some great takeaways on creating an environmental assessment for your project yesterday, and getting to know your context, otherwise Tom Allen will judge you. All right, part two, actually making sure you're doing some good. And here, I want to share some takeaways from my own experience running an organization in the Caucasus and the different types of things that I've seen people come in and do that have actually been really helpful. And I hope this gives you some ideas of the types of projects you might propose with local partners and the ways you might approach that as it goes on. So number one, bringing people in. We've seen that expeditions and fieldwork can be an incredible way to bring people together who might not normally interact. We just heard some incredible examples from citizen science, and I think it's a great opportunity to think really creatively and widely about your team. You might be building a very small, tight team to achieve a particular objective, but there's always going to be other people who are contributing to that success of your expedition. People involved in logistics, in transport, your local contacts who will have a wealth of experience that you can draw from, and think about how you can bring them into that process. Here's one of our field camps. This is a group of Georgian and Azerbaijani trail crew members working together, all folks who hadn't met a couple days prior and lived together, working together for 10 days. And this, one of the reasons I think the TCT project was so effective at getting off the ground is that we did a good job of bringing people in from the start. Local hikers, people living in the villages, and not just seeking their input, but really inviting them along the journey with us. So this is my colleague Sopo on the left and her friend Berdia on the right. And he's an incredible Georgian artist from one of the mountain regions that we were working in. And what I love about this picture is he joined us on a scouting expedition. And basically, there was an old trail going up to the pastures where they would take their sheep. But the Soviets built a road, back in his grandfather's time. He'd never taken the old trail. He'd only heard the stories. But he joined us to try to find this old trail. And his face, when we finally found, you can see kind of the basic trail bed there. he found his grandfather's trail that he'd heard the stories about. It was so cool to get to share not just the experience of walking that with him and not just learning its story from him, but to see the joy of discovery shared with everyone. It made it so much more powerful. Connect with local organizations. You know, this is easier to do than ever. Even a quick Google will help you find some local hiking groups wherever you're going. That's a great way to find some peers that you might bring into your expedition. And you know, it's a great way to get introduced to the context, ask questions, really try to understand what they need, as so many people have been saying this weekend. And if you can, you know, go out and get your hands dirty too. Third, I really encourage you to think about using your skills not just in the way that you're contributing to your expedition. You know, as you're putting your team together, you're going to be thinking about what each person can bring. But think about, too, how you might use that to benefit the context that you're visiting. So if you're a writer, you know, what can you write? If you're a photographer, what story can you tell? And actually, can you donate those photos to an organization for them to use in their communications materials? You know, videography, incredibly powerful. And one thing that has helped us a lot getting the projects off the ground and benefiting communities through tourism is mapping. Huge amounts of mapping that can be done still all over the world. This was an example of a hiker who actually built an interactive map just as a volunteer project, which has become a really useful resource both for us and for those to come after him ever since. So be thinking about these things as you're considering your own role. Fourth, tell a powerful story. I think this has been said a lot, and we've seen some amazing examples of how that has been done so well over these past 2 days. It's a world where we're increasingly inundated with information. I think that makes the storytelling component of this even more important than usual. And there's just no way to cut through all of that noise and get people to care, get them motivated to act, than to tell your powerful stories. So definitely go to all those storytelling workshops this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to them. And finally, as someone who runs a small organization, I want to explicitly tell you to fundraise. Okay, this is not everyone's favorite thing, but it is, honest to God, one of the simplest, easiest, most effective things you can do to help your context. And if you are coming from a place like this, you have a platform, you have a network, and it doesn't have to be huge scale, but I encourage you to think about how you might use that, because it is one of the most clear-cut ways to transform your interaction with the place that you're doing your expedition in from simply a stage for your activities to something that you're really giving back. And finally, please don't forget to follow up. This is not always easy. I loved all the comments about an expedition is not done until you've submitted the report. This also goes for following up with partners. If you've taken photos of people, you know, can you get their contacts, reach back out and share it with them? If you've been working on data, make sure you're sharing that with the community. All of this matters so much, not just to kind of close that loop, but because it sets the stage for how they will engage with people from now on. And it really matters. I've stuck around the Caucasus long enough to know that people really remember you, and they remember your stories, they remember your interaction. It's important to feel like when people have given you time and engaged with you, that they are also seen, they are valued, and following up is a crucial way to do that. Always keep in mind, you can't do everything, too tiring, but you can definitely do something. And last couple words that I want to just leave you with as you're thinking about hopefully going off on some very cool expeditions and making a big impact in the world is actually a Quaker saying that gets passed around my family, and that is, proceed as the way opens. AKA, you can only see so far ahead, you can never plan everything, so be open to what unfolds in front of you, be open to what you'll learn from the communities you engage with and the experience along the way, and be open to the long term, because sometimes you'll go on an expedition and little do you know, it might just become your life. And I think that's really cool. So I hope that happens for some of you. So thank you so much. I would love to chat more about impact and expeditions and all of those fun things. You can find me all day. It's another one of our beautiful trail crew camps. featuring some exciting Georgian dancing. So thank you guys so much, and go do some good.